It is said that blood is thicker than water, and usually you can count on your family for support. But that's not the case for the Anderson brood in British Columbia. A Supreme Court justice there has dismissed a woman's demand that her 3 children pay her support.
74-year-old Shirley Marie Anderson first launched legal action against her adult children more than 12 years ago, saying she could not support herself. The children said no, arguing that Anderson abandoned them as teenagers and has remained estranged. The judge has dismissed the lawsuit and ordered Anderson to pay her children's court costs.
To discuss this case, we're joined today by social worker Gary Dernfeld and Liza Sheard, a lawyer in the firm of Evans, Sweeney and Borden. Liza, we know that the law says that parents must provide for their children, but what exactly does the law say about grown children providing for their aging parents?
Well, under the Family Law Act, there actually is a provision in Ontario which says that children have an obligation to support their parents if that parent has financial need, and if the child is able to do so, and if the parent is able to show that they provided care and or support to their child.
Which this woman did not, apparently.
Which she did not. In the Anderson case, I think she lost primarily because the court, in deciding whether or not her children could pay, determined that her children really could not afford to give any money to their mother.
Gary, what do you think in terms of the argument that their mother had abandoned them and they don't really talk to her anymore? Do you think that should factor in, and that if parents want to, be taken care of later, then they need to start, being nicer, maybe, or being more present as parents?
The Christian perspective, not that I'm Christian, but I'm Jewish, but the Judeo-Christian perspective would be honor thy mother and father, which really means that you do have a filial duty to support your parents. Having said that, you also reap what you sow. I can't believe I'm being so biblical today. The message here is that if you want the support of your children, God willing, you've been supportive as a parent as well. Otherwise, there may not be that obligation, even in law.
Liza, let's talk about that. I mean, now let's say a judge has to determine whether the 3 grown children, who probably have children of their own and responsibilities and a mortgage to pay and such, how would you work a percentage? Would it be based similar to child support, where, here's how much you earn, ergo, here's how much you must pay per month for support?
Well, actually, it's quite different. In the case of a child being asked to pay for the support of their parent, the court doesn't do what they might in a child support case, which is say, well, the child has these needs, and so you'll have to rear back on your evenings out or your holidays or so on. In the Anderson case, the judge looked and said, you're allowed to save your RSP, you're allowed to have your children in expensive sports, and let's see, at the end of the day, oh, no money for you. In Ontario, the courts will do a similar exercise. In other words, they will not shake the last penny out of your pocket in order that you support your parents.
Even if your lifestyle, as you said, was, the kid's going to go to private school, the most expensive sports equipment, if that's been a pattern in your life, they can't take that away from you?
Exactly. It's a very different standard when you're asked to support a parent. There was a recent case in which the daughter had won a lottery, and in that case, of course, her father found out about it, and she ended up having to pay support. So,
wow.
Don't tell your parents if you win.
Is that legal advice?
Yes, take it
straight from Liza's mouth. Gary, my parents have always kept their finances very, very private, and I'm imagining there's other parents that don't. There's that they're the parent, you're the child,
yes,
and you don't need to know how we spend our money. No idea, their RSPs. Is that like should kids be taking more interest in how their parents are financially and the choices they're making, in case down the road when their parents are in their 70s perhaps, Liza will be the lawyer and say, listen, I want you to know you're going to have to pay some parental support.
You know what, Liz, that's also a function of the relationships between parent and child. Hopefully, if there's a good relationship, parents are somewhat self-disclosing, so their children have some sense of how the parents can support themselves in their declining years, and what supports may be sought from the child in that parent's declining years. So on a personal note, my son has a very good understanding. He doesn't know the actual dollar amount, but he has a good understanding of where my wife and I stand financially and what may befall him. God forbid we are infirmed. At the end of the day, the real message here is we want parents and children to have good relationships. When they don't, all bets are off. Sadly, in my counseling practice, I am helping children of abusive, neglectful, troublesome parents to separate, to actually, in an emotional way, divorce from their parents. These are terrible outcomes, and the outcome, the fallout could mean losing the support of your children when you're in dire needs.
Liza, in the Williams case and others similar to it, if the children don't have the means, it falls on the government, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. And that's why in that case, in Anderson, the court said you can firstly assume if this person, as she was, is receiving social assistance, then they do have financial need. And certainly if you're looking at somebody's ability to support themselves, you can't say, well, they're looked after because they're getting government assistance. That's not considered support when you're looking at the need of a person asking for support.
Right. Before we go, we should mention that our friend Gary Dernfeld is he's a speaker as well. He's not just a guest on this show, but he...
Parenting Workshop. Yeah,
Parenting Workshop, and it's tonight. It's in Burlington at the Burlington Central Library on New Street. You can't miss it. You can either Google Map it or Gary will actually come pick you up at your house and take you.
Come to my website. The flyer is there.
Tonight at 7:30. Gary, always a pleasure. And Liza Sheard, thank you for joining us and for your expertise as well.
Thanks very much.